Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 23 of the Aviation Spotters podcast. I am your host, Colin Moser. Guys, last week's episode with Ryan was fantastic, wasn't it? Really genuine, great guy, and he does mean it. If you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to him. He really does mean that. He is one of those shining beacons in the aviation photography world. And also, if you guys haven't followed him, please go follow him, because you will not be disappointed about the stuff that he posts and what he has done, especially with some of his former employers. Anyway, guys, so we are on episode 23, and I said let's keep it on the East Coast. I think that would be nice. From Fort Lauderdale, Florida, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Mr. Anthony Faraone. Anthony, good evening. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. Thanks for coming on. I know we've been trying to make this work for the past couple days.
It's been a struggle.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You know what? I'm not going to cut that part out. Screw it. That's going to be in there.
I'm sorry, Bob. First, I get some FaceTimes, all that stuff. Oh my God.
He's so popular. He's just in high demand, guys. So it means I am at desperation point for the podcast to get people on here.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm kidding. I haven't started asking for money yet. So
Next phase.
But yeah, anyway, dude, thanks for agreeing to come on. I know it's late over there, but I really do appreciate your willingness to keep trying and making this happen. So, but anyway, dude, let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah. Does it keep going off? Oh my God.
Bro.
It's a group call.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay.
God.
So,
my bad.
let's get to know you a little bit. So let's tell the listener where you're from and how you got into aviation and photography.
So, my name's Anthony Faraone. I'm 19. I turned 20 on Tuesday. So, birthday coming up. I basically started aviation when I was younger. I was maybe, 3 years old. My grandparents, they started taking me to the airport, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. Ron Gardner back in early 2000s, I remember Northwest, Midwest, Continental, some of the coolest planes of the century, some of the coolest airlines, airlines that are now gone, that I still remember, seeing as a kid. And it was just, one of the things that I used to love. And, I wasn't the best, behaved little child. I used to be a little bit rowdy. But, one of the things that my grandparents always used to love was take me to the airport, because they knew it was something that they could do with me. And and it was one of the things that they could do with me that would get me calm and keep me cool, and it wouldn't, really interfere with, the rest of our lives, because it was something that we could all enjoy together as a family.
Dude, one of my first memories is flying on a Northwest DC-9 and Northwest 727. And Northwest Airlines for me was a big part of my life, and Continental's still somewhat around. I mean, their airplanes are still painted like theirs. Is just a United brand slapped on top of them. But Midwest, yeah. What's really funny is I collect airline tags, and
really?
So I actually started collecting airline tags back in like the early 2000s. So we used to fly to Toronto Pearson a lot of international traffic. So I have a Concorde tag from British Airways, my most prized possessions. I have TWA, I have Pan Am. I have all these old airlines that don't really exist anymore too. I have a really awesome collection of all the British Airways flat. The old British Airways, how they used to have the special tails for the 747s back in the day.
Yeah. Oh my God, I wish I could have caught those back then.
So I never caught those because I couldn't even hold a camera yet. But they did some of their airline tags featured those, and I have their full collection of those. So.
I used to have stuff. Yeah, I used to have a model of one of their 747s. I used to love those tags, the tails with all the artwork on them. I thought they were so cool.
What's kind of funny is Midwest Airlines. It took me years in Toronto to get me that airline tag. They never ever had them, and then one day I got one, and so I was like, that's Midwest Airlines. I brought that back.
God, yeah.
So your grandparents got you into it, man. That's pretty cool. My dad my dad got me into to aviation, especially. I just remember flying on Northwest and all those cool things. You get any photos of any Northwest aircraft or Continental stuff before their mergers?
One of the things I remember, back in the day, I think it was around 2003, 4, 5, around that era. We had the Fort Lauderdale Air Show. And I remember American Airlines and DHL used to always do basically demonstrations of their new aircraft, and it was one of the best air shows in the world. I mean, it was sponsored by McDonald's. They had this massive budget for airlines and stuff that they could do. And I remember there's a photo that I still have in my room of me at 5 years old on the beach, and there's an American 757 doing this massive 180 bank behind me, and it was just one of the coolest things I remember was seeing these commercial airplanes. I remember I think there was a DHL DC-8 in one of them. It was incredible. It was incredible. I don't know how they would have pulled some of these airlines off to come to this air show, but they were able to do it every year. And I remember that was one of the coolest things was seeing these commercial airplanes doing these crazy stunts, and I was God, that's so cool,
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the DC-8 in a bit because you catch my unicorn every time. But man, it's what kind of with United, how United did the SFO, what is it, the Fleet Week or whatever.
Oh yeah, with the 747, and it would go over the Golden Gate Bridge. That's so sick.
Plus, it gets even better. American 757s, I think the American Chrome 57 was the best looking 757 ever.
Literally what the photo has in it is an American Chrome 757.
But I'm sorry, but a 747 doing aerobatics, take my money.
That air show, man. I think there's a famous photo. I mean, I was literally an infant, a few months old back in. I think they had the 2001 air show. I think American Airlines. That's when they got their first ever 777-200ER. And they actually did a flyby at Fort Lauderdale. There's a famous photo out there of the 727 and the 777 doing a flyby at 500 feet above the beach, in front of all these people. There's some photo out there that you could look up of 727, 777 American Fort Lauderdale Air Show flyby, and it's right on the beach, and you can see them and they're right on top of each other, and it's just insane. It's just I don't even know how they can pull this stuff off. But I think they just wanted to show it off because it was just one of the brand new things that they got, and it was just so happened being I think it was in Miami at the time, and they were just you know what, let's go and show this air show who we are and what we just got, because back then that air show was considered the Super Bowl of air shows, and I mean there was hundreds of thousands of people that would show up, and I mean hundreds of thousands, because the beaches in those photos from back then, I mean, you could not even find a place to sit. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
It was literally insane about the amount of people that would show up, because back then it used to be just so good. And it used to, I think they also had one year the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. So I mean, it's just one of those times where, I wish I could go back and remember all those different memories from my childhood. It was just so cool back then. Some of the aviation stuff that you reminisce.
No, I'm the same way about that. I mean, I wish I could go back in time and we used to get bowl charters for Florida State used to come play in the Micron Computer Bowl at the time, years and years ago, and Northwest Airlines used to charter them into 330 and the DC-10.
Oh wow! Imagine.
So just for the people that are listening that don't know the geographical location, so Fort Lauderdale is another airport in the greater Miami area, right?
Yeah, we're a big tri-county area. We're actually, I believe, the 7th most populated area in the country. It's a huge area of the southeast part of Florida, and it's literally just Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And Fort Lauderdale is situated perfectly right in the middle. It's a perfect spot, for spotting, because, I have Palm Beach 50 minutes to the north of me and Miami 50 minutes to the south of me. So I'd say it's just definitely a perfect spot for spotting in, just for commercial lovers, basically. If you're a military person, I don't know if this is the best area, honestly, because we have Key West and we have Tampa and Homestead, but it's nothing compared to some of the other parts of the country where, they get some of the craziest stuff. But it's definitely a great place for spotting that, I never really feel bored. Even in the middle of the pandemic, I never really felt like I was, bored of spotting. I felt, oh my gosh, there's this coming, there's that coming. it was never really, dead. It was always, alive and vibrant.
And I know Miami is also one of those awesome airports to spot at, but let's continue this question since I probably know the answer to this, but what would you consider your home airport?
I honestly, Fort Lauderdale Airport. It's always been my home airport. It feels like a second home to me. I spend a lot of my time out there. Even in college right now, I always tend to do a lot of my my studying and my schoolwork actually at the airport, because I just find it so peaceful and just calming to go there and watch the airplanes come in and out. And even if I'm not spotting, I just love to go by there and just check it out. And sometimes I'll bring my camera, and you never know what kind of rare stuff you'll get at that airport. Fort Lauderdale, Miami are one of those places where you'll show up one day and you just happen to spot, oh, this 767 just came out of nowhere, or oh, what is this awesome G650 that came in from Bologna, Italy, and it's in this awesome livery, and it's just like these little gems every now and then that you're just like, oh my god, I'm so glad that I was here to spot that. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So what other hobbies outside of spotting do you enjoy?
Before I went to college, I was actually a singer in high school. I used to do a lot of a cappella stuff and choir stuff. I was in a boys choir that used to travel the world. I mean, we've been to Italy, Spain, South Africa, Argentina, all these places. I got to sing at Carnegie Hall in my junior year of high school, with my a cappella group. It was awesome. It was just, that's one of the things about aviation, and, that's outside of aviation, actually, is singing. It was one of the things that, brought me, peace outside of aviation. But it was also something that was able to incorporate my love of aviation for flying into something that was outside. Because we had to travel to all these different destinations. Meaning I got to travel, on all these cool different airlines, like Air France, Air India, Aerolíneas Argentinas, and just to fly around. But yeah, I would say that my hobby outside of aviation is really singing and just music in general. I love listening to classical music. I used to write my own music, back in high school. And I also love cooking. My father is actually a chef down here in South Florida. And he's taught me a few thing or two, about cooking in the kitchen. And I love to go out and, make my own lunch and dinner and all that kind of stuff. And, not really have to, worry about something that I heat up from like a frozen meal packet, or, going out and getting something, because I know I can cook it now. So it's one of my few things that I like to do. Yeah.
I think that's a great start. So let's start talking about the more specific stuff. So let's talk about cameras, man. So what have you used in the past, and what's your current setup now?
So my first camera was, oh my god, it was back. This wasn't actually even for spotting. It was for, I used to be in the trains. I used to a lot to do like rail fanning and stuff like that. It was one of those Canon point and shoots, and I remember using it back in the day. And I used to go to Fort Lauderdale every now and then and take a few photos here and there of some of the airplanes that I would see. But that was my first ever camera, and I remember, and I cherished it to this day. I still have it. So small, so tiny compared to what I use now. But then I believe in back in December of 2015, I transferred to a regular. It was, I think, a crop sensor camera. It was just a Canon T5 Rebel T5i. Just one of those one of those Canon kit cameras, that you got like the 75-300 lens and the 18-55 millimeter lens, that would go to the airport and you could say that you got, these photos. And I used that for a long time. But then I kind of was like, this camera's kind of getting old. I needed a new one, and it's been about, 3 or 4 years. So then I upgraded to the Canon 16 Mark II, which is what I currently use. It's one of my favorite cameras. I love the quality. I love the shutter speed. I love just everything about it is so sharp and great, and I can use it anywhere and feel like it's reliable. So it's definitely one of my favorite things that I use right now, and I can't wait to see where I go in the future with some of my next cameras.
Yeah, the 6D is one of those cameras that's up there with like the D500.
Yeah.
It's like one of those really top end crop bodies, and for aviation, a crop body is probably more beneficial than a full frame.
Yeah.
But what was your lens setup?
So funny story actually. So when I was back in I think 2019, I was up in Orlando catching one of the Star Wars planes, and I believe I tried to put my 18-55 millimeter lens that I have on my new full frame 6D camera, and I couldn't fit it for some reason. And so now what I have is my Rebel T5i I use for wide angle shots And my 60 I use for just your average shots. With I have a 100-400 millimeter Canon white lens that I use. I love it. It's so versatile. It's something that even on the ramp when I go airside, it's something that I can always use and always count on to be sharp and just great with focusing. I did used to use a 75-300, but a lot of people know if they watch my story that when I was up in Orlando, I had a little incident with that. But right now I only use an 18-55 on my T5i, and I use my 100-400 on my 60.
I have that same 100-400 lens, the Mark II one.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, man. That's what swayed me to go Canon. Is Canon had the quality glass over Nikon.
Oh yeah. It's a beautiful lens. I mean, even the pre-owned ones come beautifully. I mean, it's a lens that ages well with time compared to some other ones that usually either slow down or and they don't become really the best. But this is the 100-400 is one that I feel like I can use. God, probably till almost 2025, 2030 almost. It's a great lens.
If not longer, because Canon quality.
Oh yeah.
As long as you keep them all tuned up and all that, send them to Canon every so often for, just a nice tune-up. But yeah,
it's. I think it's reliable. It's like kind of like a Toyota of like lenses. It's something that you just keep fixing and it just won't break.
Yeah, the indestructible Canon lenses, unless you drop them and destroy them, and no, we can't talk about that. That's. It's funny. It's literally last week, Ryan talked about how he started out with the Nikon Coolpix.
Yeah, there you go.
Now we got to I literally even said, and the Canon equivalent, and well, we have the Canon equivalent. All right, well, let's kind of move it into the more airplane stuff, the meat of the conversation, if you will. So, what is your so let's start with the airports first. What is your favorite airport to go spot at? Is it Fort Lauderdale?
Of course, it's Fort Lauderdale. What one of the things that I always love to tell people from all over is, Miami is great for airplanes. Like there's all this rare stuff. Antonov 12s, DC-8s. That's all great. But with Fort Lauderdale, I love the spots. One of the things that you can get at Fort Lauderdale that my friends that come down here and spot with me all the time that they tell me is, you guys have so many spots for spotters. And that's something that, never really hit my mind is, when I go to other airports around the country, there aren't a lot of airports with usually either more than one or just even one spot for spotters. And Fort Lauderdale has 3. That are just dedicated to spotters. And I mean, we've found other spots, obviously, everyone finds those little secret spots that are some of the best, Yep. I mean, the fact that we have 3 separate spots is great. We have Ron Gardner, which now we have this little thing there called the Hill, which is like a hill of dirt. And you can see over the fence, so it makes that spot even better now. So you can see over the runway and all that stuff and get all the airplanes coming in. Then we have Greenbelt, which is on our other side by runway 10 right. And that's also really, really hilly. It was actually like a park made for the residents that live by the airport. And it's awesome because you're above the fence. The way that they built it was to be for spotters. For people to enjoy the love for aviation. And that's one of the things that I love about that airport is, they really consider the spotter, not just, the person that lives there, the person that flies out of there. They consider all aspects. They consider the traveler, they consider the businessman, and they consider the spotter. And I think that's one of the things that sets my airport apart from other airports is that, love for spotters that we have. And we also have another spot that's great is the Hibiscus Garage, which is a 7-story parking garage in the middle of the airport. And you can just go up there and get rotation shots from both the south runway and the north runway. And you can basically see the whole entire field of, the FBOs, the runways, the taxiways, the terminals. And you can get some of the coolest angles that, you would have never thought of as an aviation photographer. You're like, wow, I never would have thought I could have got this angle before. And of course, one of the things I love also about the Hibiscus Garage is the skyline. I love the Fort Lauderdale skyline because it's so diverse. And it's so perfectly, sized that an airplane can fit right in front of it. And you don't have to worry about cropping and any of that. It fits perfectly. A lot of, the 737-9s and the 744s that come out of Fort Lauderdale can rotate right in front of it. And it is awesome. And I think it's like a Fort Lauderdale staple at this point, honestly. When people come down here, I think it's just something that they have to get is, a skyline shot. Because it's just one of those iconic things at Fort Lauderdale that we have that not many other airports are lucky enough to have.
Yeah, I agree. That's amazing. Who doesn't want a 747 rotating right?
Exactly. Who wouldn't? And it's great to estimate, where you think it's going to rotate, and you always gotta, you never know, so you always gotta set up right in front of the skyline just in case. And I always tend to get it perfectly right, which is great because I never want to get it wrong. But it's one of those things where it's just like if you can get it in front of the skyline, a 747 in front of just any high-rise buildings. Clumped together is just such an iconic shot. It just shows industry and, infrastructure, and it's just something that's so great and grandiose, And
plus, you brought also up the fact that how spotter friendly this airport is, and that's a really nice breath of fresh air for people out west, because a lot of airports aren't really friendly towards aviation photographers.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome that an airport actually took people like us into consideration for doing stuff like that, like a park, and it's like an LAX in a way, areas of LAX. But that's awesome though. That gives me hope for hopefully other airports will follow. And I know Orlando is the same way too. Orlando is really spotter friendly too, right?
They used to. Well, it's kind of funny that you bring that up because Orlando actually, people used to call it like the North Korea of airports because it used to be really strict about spotting. I've had a few run-ins myself, with the cops up there. Even just spotting like a regular parking lot, because they just, I guess, I don't know the difference, but, now it's a lot nicer up there compared to what it used to be back in the day, obviously. Miami is also very spotter friendly. We have El Dorado, which is the spot by runway 9. We also have the Holes. But, one of the things that's sad is that, the Holes are going away because they're actually expanding the cargo facility out there. So this place called the Holes was perfect because we used to have holes in the fence that you can just put your camera through. And all the planes that were coming in on runway 12 would just come right in front of your camera. And you would get some of the most amazing, wide-angle shots right there of, the Aeroflot A350, Qatar 777, British Airways 744, just anything that comes in on runway 12 that you could imagine. And but sadly, I think that spot's going away within the next probably about a year, possibly sooner. They're doing a lot of construction around there. But there's a lot of airports down here that are great for spotters, but I think Fort Lauderdale is definitely my number one, just because it's just, like I said, so spotter friendly compared to other airports that really don't have designated spotting areas. Like there's areas for you to watch planes, but they're not really like built for the airport by the airport.
And that's really unique, and that is awesome. Continuing on with the spotting, what is your favorite airplane to take a photo of?
See, now that's a good question, because, you live in South Florida where we have, everything, we have, like you said, your favorite, the DCA, we have the Antonov 12, the Antonov 124, A340s, A330s, C-130s constantly. We had the Qatar BBJ here all the time. But for me personally, I think my favorite aircraft to spot is probably the DCA, honestly. One of the things that I love about the DC-8 is the sound that it makes. It has those 4 engines on it that make such a buzzing sound. And I just love the fact that you can see something that's like 50 years old and it just gets up in the air. And it's like one of the cool things, not just that it gets up in the air, but one of the things that I remember when I first spotted it back maybe about a year ago was when it first pushed back, I looked out and I saw they had a ladder next to the door. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, is that a ladder? I'm like, did this thing already break down, like on the first day that I spot this airplane? And sure enough, what they do is when they push back the airplane, they have to have the maintenance people walk back with it to make sure that it starts up because it's so old. And what they do is they push the plane back and then they'll start it up and they're like, okay, it's good, we can go now. And then they'll have to open the door on the inside of the airplane, climb up this ladder to get inside the airplane, and then they take the ladder and go back. And I thought that was the funniest thing. Because I'm like, what? I'm like, I've never seen an airplane do that. And I'm just like, it's a whole experience when you're freaking, you can watch the pushback, you can watch them get into the airplane via a ladder, and it was just the funniest thing to me.
So it also adds that there's only like 6 or 7 of them that are still airworthy in the world.
And it's crazy that we have, 2 of them in South Florida alone. And not to mention, back before the pandemic started, we used to have every other summer the NASA John Glenn science DC-8 would come to Fort Lauderdale.
Armstrong.
Yeah. It used to come to Fort Lauderdale every other year because it would do hurricane research in the middle of August, and it would come to Fort Lauderdale, all the time, and it would fly in and out of Fort Lauderdale for like 2 or 3 months at a time. And a lot of people would come from around the country just to spot it because, it would literally just be here every other day. Just, oh, there goes an NASA DC-8 again. It's kind of one of those things that just became like a commoner, like the DC-8 is now.
Yeah, commoner
for us.
No, when the NASA DC-8 based in Boise for FireX AQ, man, every time that plane filed, I was out there. I don't care if I had the same angle of it. It's just that airplane, right?
It's one of those planes, that I'm only 19 years old, so some of my grandparents that flew on those airplanes back in the day. It's nice that I can also kind of live in that moment of spotting those airplanes. It brings me back because it's like, wow, imagine you see like 50 of those instead of just 1 or 2. You see 50 of them. Replace every Dreamliner that you see with a DC-8, and that's what it was like back in the day. And it's just so cool to be able to relive that kind of history of aviation, to be able to, basically unlock those memories of those olden aircraft that I wasn't able to spot, or as when they were my age, or back in the 60s, 70s, when those were prevalent and very common compared to nowadays, where there's only, like you said, 5 or 6 left in the country that are airworthy.
Not the country, the world.
The world. Yeah, the world. Yeah, the world. Yeah.
My grandfather took a photo of a Trans-Canada Airlines, a TCA, DC-8 50 or 40 with the original turbojets up in Toronto, like in the 60s. Yeah, I was like going, holy crap, that's amazing. but it's just like, that, the DC-8 for you is what the 727 is for me. Like, I will drop everything. If a 727 comes in here tomorrow, I will drop everything and I will go. I've
gotten up at crazy hours just to spot that thing, because I remember it used to always takes off around 7 in the morning, and you can get it some of the best sights sometimes.
Following on the footsteps of that is, what is your favorite aircraft of all time?
My favorite aircraft of all time is definitely the A330. I'm an Airbus person. I hate to, I know a lot of people don't like that, but you know what? I'm an Airbus guy. I wrote my first college paper on the A330 and how great it is. I think one of the things that I love about that aircraft is its adaptability. You have the 200, the 300, the 800, the 900 Neo. You have the MRTT. You have the ACJ. You have so many of the freighter version. You have so many versions of the A330 compared to other aircraft out there that it's just one of my favorite things. And I love the sound of that thing, of the A330-200 that it makes on takeoff. Those Pratt & Whitneys and those Rolls-Royces that they buzz on takeoff and they'll flex. And also, you can't mention the A330 without mentioning the duck feet landing gear. That's one of my favorite things. I remember I flew to Spain and on a Delta A330-300, and I remember landing in it for the first time, and I thought, God, that was such a smooth landing. And I was just like, that's those duck feet, landing gear. And I love to watch, the pilots come in and touch down those bottom and then just fold them right into the runway, just like it's like a piece of paper. It's just awesome. And it's so satisfying to just watch them just, go from the back wheels to the front wheels and just set it down and then open those reversers. And, it's an experience.
Yeah, we're lucky to have got quite a few A330s in Boise recently.
Yeah.
One for the National Guard for their presidential inauguration deployment, and the other ones for Boise State with Hawaiian. I think it's the first time Hawaiian's ever been to Boise. So that was really cool to see. I've flown on one A330. I slept the whole entire time. It's from Atlanta to Minneapolis. Slept the whole entire time, because I had to sleep in the Atlanta airport, because the flight before that was a 747 from Seattle to Atlanta.
Ooh.
So I slept in the Atlanta airport, and I sat like, okay, I'll try and stay awake. As soon as we took off, out. I also had the middle row too. So
it's not you really enjoy it, compared to some other ones where it's like,
yeah.
Oh, God.
330, if I'm right in saying, also holds the longest glide for like a commercial aircraft too, at the Air Transit issue.
What was it? The Azores glide.
The Azores glider, yeah, has a gargantuan wing also.
Oh yeah. I mean that thing, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful aircraft. It's one of the things. I love the wing flex on it. Fort Lauderdale, we have a bunch ourselves. We have Zool. They bring a bunch of them, back before the pandemic. We used to have, like 4 or 5 a day sometimes. and it was awesome. They always had like a 8 a.m. departure, and it would take off right around the sunrise, and you would see like the condensation, form around the engines, and it would just flex out of Fort Lauderdale and buzz, and it would just completely get rid of the entire sound of the airport, and it would just be the A330, and it was awesome. It was an experience.
And this the Neo too, right?
Yeah. Now we have the Neos. Now we have the Neos, which I love. They're nice, but they don't rotate as long, or they don't really, roll as long as some of the 200s. So I can't really get my perfect skyline shot like I used to be able to get it. But they're still one of my favorite airplanes. They're a little bit quieter, obviously, but they're longer, and they look beautiful. I'm waiting on my favorite one. My favorite airplane is and it's an A330. It's the pink. Wow. It's the pink one. It's the pink Azul A330. I think it's PRANV or PRANX. It's one of those A330s, and it's just like an Azul regular A330 Neo aircraft, but where all the blue is, you replace it with pink, and I love that. I don't know why. I love the aesthetic behind it. I love everything about it. It's stored in, I think, Châteauroux, France right now, and I probably just butchered that, but but I love that color. I just love it on the A330, and I think it looks beautiful, and I am so ecstatic for it to come to Fort Lauderdale. And I know it's going to be here at the end of the year, hopefully, but it's just going to be a matter of, just coming to that airport and just spotting that airplane. I think in the morning sunrise, it'll just be something that'll be completely just incredible, and something that is going to become my new favorite plane to spot after the DC-8.
I think so too. From what I'm kind of hearing right now is, hopefully once COVID starts kind of on the down low, or starts declining, I should say, I might be taking a trip out there. But we'll see. We'll see.
Be the first person.
So real quick, before we move on, just a quick question: what's your thought on the A350 replacing A330?
I'm not too, I'm very fond of, the A350. I'm a big Airbus person. And, one of the things that I do love about, the A350 versus the A330 is those winglets. Those winglets on the A350 compared to the A330 are just gorgeous. And, the swept back look is just perfect. And, of course, that iconic raccoon, look that you have on the cockpit. I think the A350 will be a nice replacement. It's modern. It looks modern. It feels modern. Everything about it is modern compared to the A330. And I think you see a lot of these airplane companies try and, better their aircraft. But I think once, something can go that far, I think, it starts to get a little bit old. And, you have to think, will this be a great aircraft in the future? Probably not. The A330-200 compared to the A380 or the A330-800 Neo, there's not so many differences. And, with the A330-800, it wasn't very successful for Airbus. And I think they saw that. And I think they realized that, the A330 is kind of getting outdated and older, and the A350 is going to be that new next-gen aircraft that's going to really, replace it. And, you look at the A350 ULR, something that can fly for almost 21 hours nonstop, compared to the A330, which can maybe fly 12, 13 hours nonstop. It's based on, a lot of airlines and just preferences. But I love both of them. Being the Airbus freak that I am, I love anything Airbus, all things Airbus. If you said, what do you think about the 787 replacing the A330, I'd be a little bit indifferent about that. But I think the A350 is a great replacement for it, because I think it's modern, it's nice, it's great. And I think another thing that I like about the A350 compared to the A330 is it gives airlines the chance to really explore their liveries, and it gives them a lot of, opportunities to create new liveries. I think we've seen a lot of, new liveries and new specials come out of, something like an A350 that's, shown up, and everyone's like, wow, like, look at Aeroflots compared to, their A330s, they're a lot darker and more silver, while, their new A350, it's modern, it's sharp looking, but it's more of like a pearl color, and I love it. I love that innovation, I love that new idea, and I just love how airlines are just starting to get, more modern and great about it. And I love the A350 concept, and I think it'll be a great replacement.
I'm fortunate enough to have seen some Delta A350s and some other airline. I believe have been at SFO like a long time ago. But yeah, the A350 the more I research it and the more I see it, the more I like it. I love the 787. It's a great aircraft.
Yeah.
Something about the A350 is just it's something different.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say no. I think my one like irk with the A350 that I despise in a way is the A350-1000. You know how there's no gear tilt on it, and I would have loved if Airbus put gear tilt on that aircraft. You look at the A350-900 and you see that awesome gear tilt with that that 2x2 landing gear in the back, and I'm like, wow, that gear tilt looks good. And then you see the A350-1000 with those 777 like gear, but yet they're all just uniformly just sitting there, and that irks me so much. I'm like, oh, if that plane only had gear tilt,
Yeah, had the nice duck feet.
Yeah, the duck feet. Yeah.
Do you have a least favorite aircraft to take a photo of?
My least favorite aircraft to take a photo of, that's a good question.
If you even have one.
I don't know, because it's kind of hard because you think of conditions and all that kind of stuff. I think for me, I'd say maybe a certain prop planes maybe are kind of hard for me. Are my least favorite because you have to prop blur and all that stuff, and I think that kind of bothers me a little bit. Also, I think fighter jets are some of my least favorites because I love fighter jets in general, but one of the things that it's kind of hard is to get the right angle for a fighter jet, because they're so thin, especially an F-22. It's so hard to get a perfect side shot, especially when you're a little bit underneath it or just a little bit, just out of the right angle. I think it's just hard to get a good shot of a fighter jet like that because when you see a fighter jet, you want to get the whole plane, but it's kind of hard to get underneath that wing where, the sun really isn't shining down there. So it's a bit hard, when you're editing all that stuff. But overall, like I said, I think it would be probably a prop plane where I have to, counter, the prop blur and all that stuff. But I've never really taken a photo of an airplane and been like, God, that plane, I hated that plane. I never want to take a photo of it again,
Military aviation isn't for everybody, because usually a lot of people oh, fighter jets we all love. And it's that's not my favorite. That's interesting. That's a very unpopular opinion, but I love it. That's why this makes the show unique.
There you go.
We get a share all this time. We get a share.
Of course. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an opinion, and I think, I like to go against the grain sometimes. Sadly, but I think it's just one of my things.
Yeah. So what about the rarest aircraft you've ever taken a photo of?
See, for you, it would be the DC-8.
Yeah.
But it's I've caught it 15 times.
Okay, so how about this? What is the rarest aircraft you've ever taken a photo of that's not a DC-8?
That's a really good question. I think there's so much cool stuff that's going to Fort Lauderdale and Miami in general. I gotta say it's probably the Omega 707. I've only spotted it once. I've only in the air once. I've only spotted it, and that I think the sound that I heard from those engines was such a cool plane. Or if not the 707, then you know what? The Sands A340-500, or the Sands 747 SP. I think, just there's so much rare stuff that comes to Miami. It's just, in Fort Lauderdale too, it's just when you ask a question what's the rarest thing you ever spotted? It's God, you go back and you think, okay, well, I spotted this, and the other. And it's just, there's so much stuff, that's so rare. But like you said, I would say the 707 probably, because it's something that I don't think is going to last for a long, long time. And unlike the A340-500 for Sands, I think it's going to be around for a while. But I think the Omega 707 was definitely the rarest thing that I've caught.
If you listen to my episode with Diecast Ryan, listeners, I've seen that 707 in person. But man, the other day I was supposed to go down with my friend to Nellis for the day, just because. Yeah. And, we had some stuff get in the way, so we weren't able to go. Well, guess what flew the day we're supposed to go down there?
Not the Omega 707.
It wasn't the Omega, it was the Sands SP.
Oh! I remember that, that's just it's such a pretty plane. It's such a gorgeous plane.
It is my number one to spot. I have been trying to get that aircraft forever.
Really? Oh my god! We were blessed for it to come here for the Super Bowl. I mean, it literally came. If the pandemic started literally a week before, we would have missed it. And it was just something that, I remember my friend gave me the call that morning and was like, Anthony, the 747 Sans SP is coming. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to go down there and catch this. And I was not one of one there. I was one of like 50 people that came from all across the country for Super Bowl weekend. Because that's one of those weekends where you never know what's going to happen, but we just got lucky. And it was clear skies. It was perfect weather. It was, I couldn't ask for better conditions when that plane came in. It was an experience. It's an experience.
One day for sure, I will get her, hopefully soon. God, I think actually one of my mutual friends down there, he's also been on the show, he was down in that area, I think at Miami or Fort Lauderdale, whatever. But he also got it going in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of spotters came down.
He was in Vegas. He got it coming back from the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I caught it departing the next morning. I drove down to Miami at like 6 in the morning to go and catch it because you never know we didn't know when it was going to leave. So we drove down there early in the morning, and I barely got it, so just in time.
What locations or events outside of spotting at Fort Lauderdale do you enjoy doing?
What I love also, one of the things that I love about, Fort Lauderdale is, the beach, obviously. I love going to the beach, it's just, something that's great and close and, relative. But I would say also, I love, I'm not a big sports person myself, but I love going to sports games. I just love the atmosphere. And, Fort Lauderdale and Miami in general, we have so much athleticism down here. We have the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Marlins. We now have a soccer team. They just announced that we have Formula One coming here next year. I'm surrounded by sports events. So one of the things that I do love to do is, I go to Dolphins games. I've been to Heat games. I've been to Panthers games. And I just love that atmosphere of, just being at a game and, just sports in general. It's just, such an uplifting and, exciting thing that's outside of airplanes that can still get me excited and still get me hyped up like that,
Well, what about, like, aviation events, like an air show or something like that? Do you like a specific air show or, like, a location outside of Fort Lauderdale that you enjoy?
We have, like, the Fort Lauderdale Air Show every year. We have that. We also have, the Miami Air Show now. We have the Homestead Air Show. There's also a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people know about this actually down here. So we have, the Everglades, and there's a park right by the end of this highway called 595. And I forgot the name of the park, but it's out there. And they actually have an RC runway for RC planes. And you can, like, go out there with, like, RC planes, and there's other enthusiasts out there with these awesome, like, RC planes. Like, I've seen guys out there with Boeing 777 aircraft and, 737s and, like, little, F-15s, and it's the coolest little thing because it's all these RC planes, but it's not like a, like a little, like, buy one and you fly around your backyard. It's like a professional RC model. And it's something that, these guys that are, like, in their 60s and 70s go and do on their own time, and they just fly them around. And I remember discovering it when, my grandmother and I were driving on the highway, and all of a sudden I looked up and I saw this, like, little airplane. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I looked, and I turned to my right, and I could see this, like, whole little runway. I'm like, whoa! I'm like, what is that? Like, it's this little, like, runway model airport thing. And then my grandmother and I just went the next day because we were curious, and we found all these people, and we got to, they showed me all their airplanes, and it was the coolest thing. And it's, it's like just a little RC park for people, of all ages to go, and they just fly their planes, and they show people, what they can do, and they do little air shows, and it's, it's especially popular on the weekend. And it's awesome. It's something that's not, like big, like the big airplanes and all that stuff, but it's something that's small, but it feels like, you're just like a giant person playing with little airplanes. And they'll let you fly your own little airplane sometimes, and you can fly around. But it's awesome to show you, these little models of like a 777 or like a F-15 that they added like fake afterburners on, or, the little gear retracts and the motors and all that stuff. I think it's something that's so cool.
My dad was big into RC helicopters and stuff, and I think that's also kind of the very, very early stages of what got me into aviation. So we have one of those little art strips too about an Nampa airport, and yeah, those are always cool videos to see and whatnot. But anyway, dude, listen, you got so many stories.
Full of them, man.
Dude, let's share one or two. So come on, let's share a spot story.
Okay, let's see. So, I'll share. I'll share. Yeah, I'll share one. Okay, so I'd say a few months ago, probably in, I think it was June, maybe around June, July, I drove up to Orlando with my best friend Kevin. And, we went up there for the day to spot with some of the MCO spotters up there and chill out. And we were spotting up there, having a great day, had a great old time. And we went to go and spot this, I think it was a United Dreamliner, I think it was coming in, or something was coming in, something rare was coming on the other side of the airport. And we went out and we spotted it, and we decided to sit there because there was a few other planes coming in, and the lighting was good, and the background was nice. So we're like, okay, let's stay here for a little bit. Well, I put my camera on the back of my my car, and this was actually with my 75 to 300 millimeter lens on my 6D. So this was such a long time ago. And, I forget things sometimes. I'm forgetful at times. And we spotted our planes, and I'm like, okay, well, let's go. Come on, let's get in the car, let's go. So we get in the car, and we go. And I start driving off, and all of a sudden I hear this big thunk, like, behind my car. And I'm like, what the heck was that? And I'm like, does everyone have their camera? And I look at Kevin, and he's like, yeah. I looked at this guy, his name's Otto. He's like, yeah. I look at this other guy, Dav, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, is my camera back there? They're like, no, I think you left it on the trunk. And I, was like, oh, no. And I got out of the car, and I looked back, and I could see it on the road, and the lens split in half. Thankfully, the camera, only thing that it sustained was a crack in the screen. But the lens was completely split in half. And I was like, oh my god, my mom's gonna kill me. She's gonna she's gonna murder me when I get home. And I was just ruined. And I remember I shared it, and I was just like, I'll never be able to spot again. Like, I was like, this is like my one lens that was like great for, just for photos. And I was like, what am I gonna do? So then for the rest, I think for about the next 2 or 3 months, I actually used a really old 75 to 300 that I had. That was like the motor for the autofocus was broken. So I had to manually focus all my pictures for like 3 months and just pray to God that they came out clear enough until I got my 100-400. And it was a struggle. But I got through it, but I'll never forget that because it was just a sound and then just the realization of me turning around and looking at just my lens and my camera on the ground of the road and thinking, oh my God, how could I? And there was a car like in front of me, and they were like, what the heck is this kid doing running out in the street? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, but my camera is broken into like 3 pieces on the ground behind my car. And I'm never going to forget that. It was just a sight that I was like, oh my God. And my friends were just laughing at me in the car, and I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't even. It was too much.
If that TikTok "Oh No" song
literally, literally that. That's what it was. That's literally what would have been playing in that moment.
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine anything worse.
I'm glad it was my 100-400, but it was my one lens that was reliable, and I was just like, no, like, what am I gonna do now? And of course, when that happened, that's when all this rare stuff came to Fort Lauderdale, like, some American cargo converted freighter that came from Israel just so happened to come like 2 days later, and I'm like, oh great, let me just pull out my broken lens.
Let's just see if it will magically focus.
Literally, I was like so scared because that was one of my biggest fears. Was like, oh my God, I had my little my index fingers where around the little autofocusing at the end, or the little focus thing on the end of the lens to try and help focus it. And I would try and zoom in as much as I can to try and make sure it was as sharp as possible. And some would come out good, but others were like, "Oh my God! Like, would like a 3-year-old take this? Like, Jesus!"
Yeah. Oh,
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the craziest things. That or the Emirates inaugural at Fort Lauderdale in 2016, December 2016. One of the things I remember, I was out there with at least 100 other people, and literally 100 other people. And, Fort Lauderdale has 2 runways. We have 28 left, 28 right, 10 left, 10 right. Or 10 left, 10 right.
Just like Boise's runways are 1028s.
And they're on separate sides of the airport, and they're separated enough to where, if you're in the middle of the airport, one side's backlit, one side's not. And this was December, so, it was good winter light, and, the perfect runway was 28 left, which was, the Hibiscus garage spot in front of the skyline. Well, Emirates was bringing a $200 that day, and so we're like, okay, heavy aircraft, it's going to land on this runway. Fort Lauderdale's runways are only 9,000 feet and 8,000 feet. We don't have really long runways. So we all assumed, okay, Emirates, big plane, big runway, 2 and 2 together, duh. So it's coming in, and everyone's waiting, and we're like, okay, here it comes, guys, it's on final. Well, all of a sudden, some guy yelled, it's on the other side! And, there was a flock of people that went from the 28 right side to the 28 left side. We ran across the parking garage. And I'm not the fittest dude, but if it was for Emirates, man, I ran. I was going to speed of sound across that thing to get that dang shot. But one of the things that we forgot was we're like, oh, they're having a huge press event in the middle of the terminal that Emirates is going to, and they wanted everyone to see Emirates come in. And that completely didn't cross any of our minds, and we completely missed the photo of this amazing, 777 $200 aircraft landing on this, nice runway and, and beautiful, gorgeous, cleared sky, light. But no, they were like, you know what? We're going to request 28 left so we can land in front of all these people. And we were just, oh my God. But that, I remember just, my grandmother was there with me because I didn't have my driver's license yet. And I remember she told me, she was like looking down at her phone, and she remembers looking up and seeing all these people run by her car, and it was like, what the heck is going on? And I think she like grabbed me and was like, Anthony, what's going on? And I'm like, I have to get this plane, like I have to go to the other side. And it was just like a flock of like 100 people going from one side of the parking garage all the way to the other side of the parking garage. It was like just a mass swarm of spotters. Like it was something out of like a movie. It was insane.
That is, I don't think I've ever seen something like that, but I can just imagine people like
literally
across
because we didn't realize, because flight radar, when back then this was like 2016. It wasn't like advanced like it is now. But if it's off by just a little bit on flight radar, you don't know if that's the difference between the left runway or the right runway. So
yeah.
That's why I think at the last minute, I think someone looked on flight radar and was like, we can't see it by now. They're like, if we can't see it already, where is it? And then everyone was like, oh my God, it's on the other side. And you're just like, oh, how could this happen to us?
That's a kick in the nuts, as my friend says.
It's not the first plane to do it, and it's not the last.
Did you get her taken off at least?
No, because back then they came in the middle of the night, or they took off in the middle of the night. That was one of the things about Emirates is, they came into Fort Lauderdale at 10 o'clock in the morning every day, and then they would leave at 9 o'clock at night because, the temperature in Fort Lauderdale was so hot that if they used our long runway, it wouldn't be able to take off. That was one of the things that Emirates did at Fort Lauderdale to help cope with that weight imbalance, was they would land in the middle of the daytime, and then they would park the plane on the Zulu ramp for probably about 10, 12 hours, and then it would bring it back around 6, 7 o'clock, and then it would leave around 9 o'clock, so that it was light enough to take off in the nighttime, or it was, good enough, the conditions. And, it used to be, it was so dark, or it used to be so heavy that when the pilots would take off, if you looked at it when it was taking off, you could see the glow of the GE90s from how, powerful the takeoff would have to be out of Fort Lauderdale for them to just get off the ground. And they took off, I think, once in the daytime, the entire time they were ever here, besides COVID when they brought the 300 ERs in here for cargo. But they took off once in the daytime, and it was because we had the shooting in Fort Lauderdale back in January 6, 2017, I believe. And all the flights were stopped, and I believe the airport was shut down through 1 a.m. So Emirates didn't depart that night. So the next day, when everything was open again, Emirates had to depart because there was actually 2 777-200LRs on the ground, because the regular Emirates flight that was supposed to come normally came because it wasn't affected. but then the flight that was supposed to leave the night before didn't end up leaving. So it actually had to leave during the daytime at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon because it had to go back to Dubai, obviously, for other planes. And it was the only other time in history at Fort Lauderdale that Emirates ever took off in the daytime. So, and I was lucky enough to be there because I'm like, God, like, how cool would that be? And I was lucky enough to be there to catch it departing. And it was just one of those like memories that you'll never forget, with Emirates.
There's something about this. I mean, people like, ooh, Emirates. I'm like, yeah, but there's something about like their aircraft is like,
oh yeah,
no matter what.
It's a gorgeous aircraft. Gorgeous livery, gorgeous sound, gorgeous everything.
You said 777 to the 200 LR. I'm like,
it's such an ideal aircraft. It's perfect. Big engines. Raked wingtips. It's such a great aircraft. That 777 gear. And just that. They have the special GE90-115Bs, so they have the extra big ones that usually go on the 300 ERs compared to the 200 ERs, and you just get that deep tone that that just can completely silence the airport. I used to when I used to come home on my late night flights when Emirates would leave. I used to literally stay behind like an extra 15 minutes just to hear it take off from the parking garage because it would literally shake the airport because it was just such a noise that it would produce that it would just shake the entire airport on the startup, on the taxi, on the takeoff. It was something else.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, luckily I was able to get a couple 200 LRs in Seattle back when they were running 2 daily from Seattle to Dubai. So they used to send in the 200 LR in the morning, which is really nice. I used to fly up there, spot it from the airport, from the terminal side, and then so that was always fun. But anyway, man, let's start wrapping her up after the heels of those 3 amazing stories, man. But what tips or words of encouragement do you have for the listener out there?
I'd say just keep striving for greatness. I have almost 30,000 followers on Instagram, and I never thought I would ever get here. And I think it's just something that I try and humble myself with every day because I think, wow, it's something that people really want to, take in is they want to watch me and they want to see my photos and they want to see my photography. And it humbles me as a person, to think, wow, all these people, I started from nothing back in October of 2016 and now I'm here. And it's just such great, it's something that's so great that, I was able to go from just a few hundred followers to over 30,000 now. And it's something that I can pass on to anyone, is if you do your hardest, you can get the work done. If you try, if you just go for the goal, you'll get it done. It may take time, and it took me years, but you know what? You're going to get there. And it's something that has pushed me to just do my greatest every time I post a photo, every time I post a story. I think, wow, will this help me? What will this do for my career in the future? What is this photo going to help me with? What opportunities could I get from this photo? And that's something that you never know. You never know if the airline is going to maybe repost your photo. You never know if maybe a flight attendant will see it and then pass it on to the marketing person who will pass it on to the CEO who will then email you and say, hey, I want that photo in my office. So that's something that I would love to see. You never know who is watching you. You never know what you're doing on Instagram when you're doing it. It's something that you always have to take charge of. And no matter what follower account, no matter how big your account, no matter how small your account, always remember that the harder you try, the better you can do. Just humble yourself and just get to your goal. Set a goal for yourself. Say, hey, I want to get to this. I want to do this. Do it. Get it done, and I know you'll get it done. It's something that I always put forward was, those goals of just trying to do my best whenever I can do my best. And that's something that I pass on to others is do your best. Do the best that you think you can do, and it will get you far in life.
That is so well said, man. That's perfect. Strive for greatness. It doesn't matter your follower count. Trust me, man. I've been posting on IG since 2015. I got 4,600 followers. Do I care?
Exactly. And you know what? Some people that have it doesn't matter the number because it's the content. It's not about the followers. It's not about the likes. It's not about that stuff. It's about the content that you produce. if you produce this awesome mountain background photo, it'll get recognized. People will see that photo. It doesn't matter your follower count. It doesn't matter the likes. People will see it, and they'll say, wow, look at this guy. He's a great photographer, with this mountain background. He does great editing, great this, great that. His photos are nice. His camera equipment's great. And that's something that I think everyone can relate to, It's something that's great.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, if people like the content, likes the content, and... Well, speaking of Instagram and all that, where can people find your work? Either on Facebook or Twitter or
I'm mostly on Instagram. Aviation_FT Lauderdale. That's my main. I have a Twitter, but I rarely ever use it. That's really all. I've never really posted on Flickr or Facebook or all any of that stuff. I really just kept to Instagram because I think I can get my my work out there and show it to people and get around. Compared to some other websites where it's a little bit harder to do so. But I mostly share my stuff all on Instagram, Aviation Fort Lauderdale. That's my main page, so.
Well, there you go. But guys, go give him a follow. If you haven't already, please make sure you go follow him. And you will see what he is talking about with that skyline shot from Fort Lauderdale and all of his DC-8 stuff. And all that awesome, amazing stuff. But please go check him out. Go follow him. Go give him some support. Go give him some love. Trust me, he needs some reward for doing this after we tried to do this.
Took us almost a week, man.
Yeah, well, guy coming on the show, I'm not going to drop who it is yet, but I very severely dropped the ball with him. But we're not going to talk about that. Well, he'll be on. We are setting up another time. It probably will be my biggest guest today. It's bigger than Ryan. Bigger than Kadar. It's
foreshadowing.
Oh man, I'll say that if he's also part of one of the largest aviation podcasts currently. So we're not gonna name names, but anyway. But guys, if you guys haven't already, please go check out the Facebook page, the Aviation Spotters Podcast Facebook page. I am relying on it very, very heavily right now. So. Not as much Instagram, but please go check out Facebook. But if you guys know anybody that wants to come talk aviation with me here on the AvSP, shoot me an email, askspotterspodcast@gmail.com. Send me a DM on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Send a message on Facebook as well. Check out the YouTube page. I always have to say this, guys. If you know somebody that doesn't have access to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, there are those people out there, believe it or not. Show them the YouTube page. It's a great way for them to listen to the podcast, and maybe they would want to come on the show and talk with me on here, because I would really love to do that. So anyway, Anthony, anything else to add before we wrap her up this evening?
I think we had a great conversation, man. I was glad to be on here.
Awesome, man. And I thank you for your patience, and thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it, and that was a wonderful discussion, and I hope all you guys thoroughly enjoyed it. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me on another episode of the Aviation Spotters Podcast. And as always, keep your batteries charged and the cameras ready. The Aviation Spotters Podcast.